this meeting of the City of Monterey Planning Commission to order for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. This is an afternoon session. We have roll call.
Chair Fletcher,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bluth,
Here.
Commissioner Brassfield,
Present.
Commissioner Dawson,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman, here, Commissioner Latassa.
Here.
For staff, we have Community Development Director Cole, Senior Associate Planner Schmidt, and myself, Recording Secretary Cleary. And members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, a secure service that connects you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey with a 10-second delay and Comcast Channel 25 with up to a 90-second delay. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. Since the meeting has started, you'll find the agenda under the Recent tab.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 1. We have our consent agenda here. And just to note that any member of the public or commissioner may request that an item recommended for approval on the consent be heard on the regular agenda for further discussion. Is there anybody wishing to do that? Okay, seeing that there's none, our consent agenda includes approval of the minutes for April 25th, 2023, not a project under CEQA. Per Article 20, Section 15378, and under General Rule Article 5, Section 15061. Any comments or changes to the minutes?
Move to accept the minutes as presented.
We have a motion to accept the minutes, a second, and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Jennifer, a roll call vote.
Chair Fletcher,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bluth,
Yes.
Commissioner Brassfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Latassa.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. These minutes are approved as submitted.
Okay, that ends our consent agenda. Moving on to public comments. At this time, the public may speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any subject which is within the jurisdiction of the Monterey Planning Commission and which is not on the agenda. Any person or group desiring to bring an item to the attention of the commission may do so during public comments or by addressing a letter to the commission. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak before the Planning Commission? Anybody online?
I see no hands raised, but just in case there are more viewers at home, you can join by telephone by dialing 833-568-8864 toll free, then enter the webinar ID 161-990-8039. If you are in the meeting already, to provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen, or to provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. And no hands are going up. I think it's safe to move on.
Okay. Item number 3 for our public hearing is consider 107 via developing R. It's a variance application VA 23-0036 to reduce the required 2-car garage parking dimension. The required is 20 by 20. The existing is 20 by 19.6. The proposed is 15 feet 9 inches by 19 feet 6 inches. The applicant, Megan Mock, owner, Megan Mock and Robin Ilani, trustees. This is zoned R18 zoning district. Low density residential general plan designation. This is exempt from CEQA per Article 18, Section 15270A. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Chris Schmidt. I'm a senior associate planner for the city, and I've been working with the applicant on this variance application. So to start with the recommendation, the staff recommendation is to deny the variance request to allow a less than required 2-car two-car garage parking area dimension. Just some background information about the site. It's zone R18, has a general plan designation of low density residential, and it is located in the Monterey Vista neighborhood on Via del Pinar. This is fairly close to the Via Paraiso Park, just off to the right of this photo here. So the proposal is to reduce the required parking dimension. So what they have is a two-car garage that is 20 feet by 19.5 feet. The proposed reduction would be 15.75 feet by 19.5 feet. And then the requirement for a two-car garage is, just for reference, is 20 feet by 20 feet. And this request this request was made because they would like to expand their kitchen into the existing garage space. It would allow fairly small expansion of the kitchen, but it would admittedly improve kind of the circulation of the kitchen. So here's the site. On the left, we have the survey that was prepared for the site. It's not a topographic survey, but it does show the property lines. The image on the right is from the city's GIS page. The property lines are not correct on the city's GIS page, but the topo, which is roughly correct, was added just for reference, just to show, because the applicant's justification includes topography. And then so here's the home. So as you can see, this is a photo that is just a couple of years old, and I believe the applicant's presentation has some newer photos. But you can see that two-car garage on the left-hand side there. It is located at the 20-foot setback. The zoning ordinance for the R1 zone requires that all required parking be subject to that front yard 20-foot setback, including covered and uncovered parking. So right now, their required parking is inside of that garage. The requirement is for two spaces, one covered and one uncovered, which can be satisfied with two covered spaces. So this is the proposed floor plan on the right, and then the existing condition on the left. So as you can see, they're proposing their kitchen to expand into the garage here, as well as creating this small walkway that goes to an existing doorway and stair to their rear yard. If I remember correctly, it's a fairly small expansion of the kitchen, about 45 square feet.
Where's that walkway?
The walkway is in the bottom right corner here. You can see this. So they are showing a new wall and door right here adjacent to the washer and dryer. Which, so essentially the new garage would be this space here outside of the yellow line.
Okay.
Now I've really summarized the applicant's justification, and I know that Megan is going to speak to it at length, but generally, these were the kind of the key points, so that the existing garage can't be expanded into the front because of setback, the 20-foot setback, and then additionally into the side because there's also a setback requirement. Required parking can't be located in the front yard setback as well. The north side of the house is only about 6 feet wide, so a parking space could not fit there. The minimum width for parking is 10 feet. And then on the south side, the side yard is too steep, and there's an existing greenway with native plants, and it's adjacent to a community walkway, which they also value as well. So in order to approve a variance, the Planning Commission has to make three findings. The first is that because of special circumstances or conditions applicable to the subject property, including size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, strict application of the requirements of this ordinance deprives such property of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and under identical zoning classification. Staff was not able to make this finding. Their goal was to add on to their kitchen and make it a little bit larger. And then looking at the site, there are other locations at the dwelling that really could be expanded, that could accomplish this goal, specifically in the front of the dwelling. They also have some room in the rear. It would require a second story addition, but it could be done. So that's why staff did not make this finding. The second finding is that granting the application will not be detrimental or injurious to property or improvements in the vicinity of the development site or to the public health, safety, or general welfare. This project would be detrimental to property in the vicinity because the site would not maintain the required 2 parking spaces behind the setback as it does today. The third finding is that granting the application is consistent with the purposes of this ordinance and will not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with limitations on other properties in the vicinity and in the same zoning district. The proposal is not consistent with the purposes and objectives of the ordinance because it would not maintain those required parking spaces, but staff did not find that this would constitute a special privilege. There are other sites in the vicinity that have a similar non-conforming parking situation where there's like a 1-car garage with no other required parking outside of that front yard setback. So again, staff's recommendation is to deny the variance based on those findings. Also note that the applicant, excuse me, a number of neighbors did actually provide letters of support. We had sent 4 letters to the planning commission that have been uploaded to the city's website, and then the applicant did drop off 1 more today. I'm happy to read into the record if necessary, but it does support the variance as well. So with that, I'm available for questions. The applicant and owner is here as well. And she does have a PowerPoint prepared to give to you today.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a
Mike?
question?
Yes, of course.
Back at page 19, it calls out the zone district, which is R1, and then the land use R3. What am I not understanding there?
I'm sorry, it is R1 single family use.
They both are one. Land use and zoning district.
I'm not sure without looking at it in front of me. I could pull up the packet online, but it is an R1 zone site and
That's correct. It's R1.
Well, it's called R1 several places, but I see this R3 sitting here on land use, and that's bothersome.
Yeah, it's R1.
it's R1.
It's R1.
It's a mistake.
Okay.
Other questions? Oh, yes.
Is the 19 feet 6 inches the depth or the width?
I believe it's the depth.
Because this picture that I just took 10 minutes ago does not match the picture that you have.
Which picture is that? This one?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is an old photo from Google Maps. The applicant has some newer photos
Okay.
that we'll show.
Can you tell me the width of the garage door as it currently is?
Yeah, it's a little too hard to read here, but
Yeah, I'll say.
I can find it in the packet. Oh, this is the wrong date.
See, it's like there's a garage door and a side door. No, in the front. Oh,
the size.
there you go.
So the garage door, this isn't doesn't look like to be the full measurement, but it's maybe close to 11 feet.
Uh-huh.
12 feet.
10-7.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions further?
When was this structure originally built?
1965.
Because I remember 1965 cars being wider.
That's right.
And that door just looks unusual. How do you park 2 cars in that garage?
Yeah, I think that there was an old building permit record that showed roughly that there was a wider door proposed at the time. Yeah, you can see that 16-foot wide door.
Yeah, that's a standard 2-car
Yeah, that would be standard. That's why I'm asking.
door.
I don't know when the garage door was replaced.
So-
I don't have records that show.
How is this approved if didn't match the plan. Originally,
So it may have been in the 1960s constructed per plan and have signed off on that, and they may have, previous property owners may have made changes. Or maybe it was installed incorrectly to begin with. I mean, I don't think we really, we don't,
I'm
can't
just,
confirm that.
thank you, I'm just curious, because it just looks.
Yeah.
And then now we're here looking at this issue.
Yeah.
So, a while back, we had a variance hearing. A member of the public asked me, how does this work? Could you explain it? So I tried to explain it to him, but I don't know how it reached this stage. What is the process you're in?
Yeah, so I think what really initially occurred was the applicant had come in wanting to do this project, and we looked at their drawings, which are attached here today, and looked at the dimensions of the existing garage, and it appeared to be a 2-car garage from what their drawing showed, and based on the site plan, there was no other location for the required parking on site. And then we looked at records. So we saw that we came to the conclusion that this was a 2-car garage. Whether or not the garage door would allow 2 cars to park in there, no, it's not exactly part of the discussion. But at that point, we had discussed, is this a non-conforming structure? And I think really we just came to the conclusion, because it was close to the requirement of 20 by 20, it's an existing 20 by 19 and a half, that it was a 2-car garage. They were explained the options of doing an addition elsewhere to make more room for the site. They felt this was the configuration for their kitchen that they wanted. And so we explained the variance process and how they can move forward with it. And so you flash forward a couple of months, this is where we are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. So the city of Pacific Grove allows the second uncovered space to be, as in the photograph, what's called a tandem space where they park in the driveway. This isn't the city of PG, and our zoning ordinance doesn't allow that. Are you aware of any approvals in the past or variances to allow somebody to have that second uncovered space in that front setback as a tandem kind of a thing?
None that I was a part of. The only one I can remember is actually my neighbor. They don't have a garage, and the only parking space on their lot is, their house is probably 15 or 18 feet away from the property line, and they received variance approval a few years ago, but they had no on-site parking to begin with. I'm not really sure otherwise.
And they received a variance to allow the uncovered parking in the front setback.
Chris, could you expand a little bit about uncovered parking beyond the front yard setback?
So the R1 zone does require that even uncovered parking be behind the 20-foot setback. Is
Yeah,
that the
right.
question? Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah. It can be tandem with your covered parking as well.
Sure. Okay. So the one other question, in your presentation, you were describing the options they have for expansion that are available instead of building into the garage as they're proposing. And one of them you mentioned would require a second floor addition. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So let me go back to the drawing. So if you can imagine the Via del Pinar is on the top side of the drawings here. The grade is so steep that as you come down the hill on the around the side of the garage, you're looking at like a nearly 10-foot distance to grade from that finished floor level at the garage at the rear, which there's a specific definition for story, which I think Commissioner Latassa might be familiar with, but that more we didn't go and look at what percentage of the exterior is above 4 feet above the grade, but just by looking at it, there's such a steep grade change that I would estimate that about 60% of the exterior would meet that
Okay,
story
thank you.
definition.
Okay.
So the rear, there's a pretty steep drop off the rear there, and you can see there's a stair at the back too.
Sure. So they could do additions to the house, but they would be considered, even though it's all basically a one-story house, it would be considered two-story because of the steep grade.
Right.
And the over 4 foot thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
I have another one.
Yes, Mike.
That brought it up. As far as the objection that require a variance, would it be better to widen that garage just a little bit to bring it into code, even though the variance then would be on the sideway?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the applicant talks about in their justification, and I do agree. The distance to the property line, if you could see where my cursor is on the screen here, distance to property line, I believe, is about 6 feet. And so in addition to the garage here, we didn't explore it in much detail, but it may not actually meet the required setback. I mean, 6 inches probably would, if we called it a second story, but yeah, I mean, it's not something they wish to explore.
Is the required setback 4 feet or 6 feet
For a second story, it's 7 feet minimum.
to the side property line?
Correct.
Okay.
But if it was a choice of a variant of this, what they're asking for, or an alternative of widening a little bit, which would be more acceptable to the city?
Well, if we're looking at moving the garage here, the same distance as what's being added here, almost 3.5 feet, 3 feet and 3.25 feet. I just don't know that it would meet the setback, so that may not be acceptable either.
I was looking at, it'd be a 20-foot wide garage. That would be like 7 inches or 5 inches.
Right, but I think if they were to, that's a separate project, right? To extend it and not do the kitchen project, to do an extension and the kitchen project, you're looking at pushing the garage closer by another 3.5 feet or so. So I just know that it wouldn't meet the setback if we were going to go that far. But it's a good question.
I'm just looking for an alternative.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chris. Now let's hear from the applicant, please.
Hello, Planning Commission. It's my first time coming in front of you, so give me a little leniency. My language with planning is new. I'm a marine biologist. My name's Megan Muck. I teach over at CSUMB. I'm teaching science writing. I'm also a student at MPC. I'm taking Spanish, which I'm hoping to use in my job. We moved here in 2013 and had our kids here. As a marine biologist, Monterey is a bit of a mecca for marine biologists, and I'd always wanted to work here. My husband works at Hopkins Marine Station, and my kids are in school. They're both under 10. And finding a house was really important to us after we had a bit of a rental house experience, as many do in this area. We lived in a rental house a few blocks up the hill, and our landlords decided that they wanted family to move in. They made us move out that month, and it turns out they actually flipped the house and rented it for $1,000 more the next month. And we were set on our quest to find a house. It took us about 2 years. So now we live in Villa del Pinar. I really love our neighborhood. I also really love how green it is and our trees and the greenway that we live on. So I really appreciate the area we live. So I just wanted, Chris did a great job of introducing the area, but I wanted to start by giving you the map of where we live. We're on Villa del Pinar, and we're right next to Villa Paraiso, just up the hill from this office. My house is in the pink in the middle picture. I just wanted to show you the setback, which Chris also showed you. And then this is a current view taken today of the front of my house with my car in front of it. You noticed that we have it's about 11-foot garage door. It's not a single car garage door. It's not a double car garage door. It's something right in the middle. You would. Thank you. So you've seen this figure. You may see a couple repeated, but I'll still talk about it. So our current garage size is technically a one single car garage. If we're following the rules, and the rules are that it's a 20 by 20 regulation for a 2-car garage, technically we have a big single car garage. And if you were in my garage, you might agree with that statement. In blue, I've highlighted the area that is our current kitchen, and I highlighted in red the wall that we'd expressed interest in moving. I cook with 4 people in this kitchen. It's a little tight space, and we're pretty excited with the idea of expanding. So this would be the future kitchen. The expansion into the garage pushes it a refrigerator depth in. So we're pushing the refrigerator into the garage, and then creating a little bit of a mudroom in front of that back door leading to the backyard. And we're reducing it approximately by 50 square feet. I have the numbers there on the bottom for you. And you asked about the depth. So 19 feet 6 inches stays the same depth, and we're squeezing it down just a bit. So why do we want this specific renovation? And I'll talk a little bit more about other options that we could take. But for this renovation, one is we want this expansion because our family really uses and centers around the kitchen. It's one of the lowest cost options for us to expand through this wall rather than move forward or backward in the house. We believe it to be the best design option. I have a friend who's an architect, and we did probably 70 different designs of how we could put a kitchen into this space. There's no impact to our neighbors if we do this expansion. We don't move into the front of the house. There's no major development outside. And I think that we also, we upgrade the value of the house for ourselves, but we're also increasing the longevity of this house for the neighborhood and for our community. We're putting money back into the house itself. So the rule that is the reason that we're here is that current development regulations require lots of our size, which are greater than 5,000 square feet, to include 2 parking spaces, one covered and one uncovered, one covered or uncovered outside of that 20-foot setback. That 2-space rule was not in place when our house was built in 1965, according to the City of Monterey 1964 zoning ordinance, which required 1 parking space. Our garage is a large 1-car garage, and it fits this 1964 ordinance if we're following those rules. It's currently non-conforming by the current zoning standards. So here are the reasons why I think you should all consider approving this variance. My cover up's not working. So ignore the bottom number. Our garage is non-conforming based on current requirements. Like I said, I just want to show you the image. These are the 2 images I showed you earlier. It's already, from dimensions, slightly smaller than a 2-car garage. If you could hit one more. This is the size of a 1-car garage requirement. So we're at about 1.5. We're requesting about 1.5 car garage. We're not shrinking it down as small as possible. It's still quite a large garage space. 2, existing conditions. Oh. Things converted wrong. Existing conditions do not allow more parking to be added to the property. So I want to just describe what the conditions are right now on our property. Making them both impossible or costly. So in the front yard setback, as Chris spoke about, our whole house runs about 20 feet from the street. So adding a parking spot in that front setback would be go against zoning rules. On the north side setback, the property line is 6 feet from the back corner of the garage. I'm looking down the slope of a set of stairs that run down the side of our house. Our property line is also at an angle, and I'll show a picture that shows that. So even if we could move to the side, we also can't move backwards, which is also within 6 feet of that corner space. And you had mentioned the corner being 10 feet. Chris and I had talked about different depths. At that corner, it's about 6 feet. So I don't know whether the garage is considered a second story, but definitely the rest of our house is on the back. And then the other option would be building additional uncovered parking spaces. So we talked about the north side and the front setbacks, which are already limiting the garage space. There's also the south side, which has quite a slope. I have a dashed, so to orient you to this picture, in the pink corner is the 107, that's our house. Via del Pinar is on your right, or sorry, left. At that dashed line is about where the slope starts and runs down the side of our property. And the city greenway is just to the south of that. You could hit it one more time. So this is what the side of the house looks like. There's a set of stairs, an oak tree, and if you step back to the other side of the greenway, so I'm looking across a creek, across the greenway and to the side of our house. And that yellow upside down triangle is the same place in each picture, just so you have an idea of where you are. We are right along the greenway. So one idea could be that we have 12 feet from the south end of our house to the property line. We could put in a parking spot there. We'd have to build a retaining wall to hold in the dirt that would allow us to move past that 20-foot setback, which is at about where the front of the house is. So we'd be parking up and along the side of the house to make that happen. And, we'd be interfering with that greenway. We have worked with the city on the greenway. We plant natives in the greenway. I was pulling thistle out of the greenway this weekend. It's covered in thistle. You could hit ahead. And just to give you an idea, here is the house. To the north is to the top is Via del Pinar. On your left is the greenway. And I've marked all the oak trees on our property to also give you an idea that if we expand, or if we say built that parking spot, the exposed parking spot on the south side of the house, we'd be pulling out a couple of old oak trees. On the north side of the house, you can see how close the dimensions are to the back corner of the garage to the property line, and the 20-foot span on the top, the north. So here are two other options if we wanted to expand in the interior. In red is our current kitchen. In blue are two other possibilities. One is that we pop out the front of our house. We are allowed to build up to 15 feet from the city property line. That is that whole blue area that I have highlighted where it says patio underneath. If we did that, we'd have to reinforce our roof. I talked to a contractor about how much that would cost. It's over $80,000 alone for that one piece to pop out, not including digging out for sewer and water and all the other expansions, in addition to neighborhood disruption and an oak tree that we have right on the corner of that spot. We could also flip the kitchen and put it where our dining room is currently. There is a giant glass door in the middle of that space limiting how you build it out. We'd also have to change all the sewer, the water, electrical, and everything else that we have. Both of those options are both costly and somewhat disruptive as well. So we would argue that no special privileges are being granted because non-conforming garages with no additional parking outside their setback are common in my neighborhood. This is Via del Pinar, same map as before. I'm up near the top. I've marked in green all of the houses that have a 20-foot setback and a single car garage. And in blue are the two houses on our block that have a 2-car garage. And so I'm going to show you pictures of those right now. On the top left is my house, and then moving from my house down the street across the top and then across the bottom in green are all those houses that have a setback of 20 feet with a single car garage. So 5 of the 7 on my block. And that has a lot to do with the slope. We all have similar conditions that our houses are built under, and it's limiting how we can build down the slope space. And just 2 final points. One is that I talked to my neighbors, some of who've been in the area for quite a while. It's not been updated. Current and future use of this garage will not be impacted, as the garage has only been used as a single car garage in the past and for storage. Yes, that's from talking to neighbors up and down the street, because I wondered how it's been used in the past. I thought that might be a good point to make. Another point is that our garage has wood floors. The support structure under those wood floors runs the same through the whole house, whether it's under the garage or in the house. And I would argue that that wood floor, under perfect conditions, would not support 2 cars. So these slides are a bit drier, but I wanted to speak directly to the findings that Chris spoke about earlier. So our request is that our property be permitted the same privileges enjoyed by other properties. We have constraints like slope and the location of the existing building that don't allow us to park anywhere, but where there is currently that non-conforming single-car garage or in the site setback to the south. Our car was built to 1964 zoning rules, which are non-conforming today. That means it's a single-car garage, and that was okay at that time, even though it is not okay now. In addition, there are other houses in our neighborhood doing the same thing, or have the same conditions that we have and that we propose to continue to have. For number two, I respectfully disagree that our existing covered space remains unchanged. The driveway access to the street is the same, and there's no change to the exterior of the house, and that there should be no impact to the public. And finally, for finding three, our variance application is not requesting special privileges. And like I said, many of our neighbors' homes on similar lot sizes and with similar slope currently have a single covered parking spot outside of the street setback. These are all things that I've already gone over, but thank you for considering this request for variance.
Thank you, Megan. If you could stay for some questions. I'd
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Thank you for your smiles.
I have some questions, Megan. If you could go
Please.
back to one of your earlier images.
I can't, but I think Chris can.
Okay. It's the one of the garage and you had the red lines. Dash.
Near the beginning?
Yes.
Close.
Further.
There you
That.
go.
Can you tell me what the width is between the red line behind the micro to the other wall?
Behind the washer and dryer? Sorry.
No, behind the red line behind the microwave, pantry, refrigerator.
Oh,
What is that with?
we've been so focused on the smallest dimension. I think if it's 15 feet, it's 1 foot difference. 1 foot 2 inches
Would
difference.
it be 2 feet 7 inches?
What it looked like.
That's the other one.
Okay. So let me ask you, I noticed the picture, there's a basketball hoop. Do you currently use your garage for car?
No, we've never parked our car in our garage.
Okay. The stairway that goes to the backyard, what's back there?
The stairway that goes to the backyard, what do we use the side stairs for? Or,
Yeah,
the-
is it just coming down to the backyard?
yeah, it's steps that go down to the backyard. That's the corner my husband dries his wetsuit on.
Okay. Chris, what is the size of a compact stall these days?
The city doesn't allow compact stalls.
So we used to, we amended our code. The compact stall used to be 8.5 by 16 feet in depth. You used to be able to have on a single family lot, one regular size and one compact. So compact was 8.5 by 16. And I believe a regular size was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 9 by 18. And then we changed our standards quite a while ago.
I think 2016.
Okay, 2016 to each one being basically 10 by 10,
Okay.
10 by 20. 10 by 20.
10 by 20. Yeah, that would be a little short.
Way short.
Okay, thank you. Other commissioners,
Not too short for your car.
No, no.
any other questions? Okay, thank you, Megan.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And I think we can open up to public hearing.
Actually, somebody else. Public comment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hello, my name is Dave Abramson. I also live on Via del Pinar. I moved in about 3 years ago, and I certainly have no issue with what they are proposing to do. A little history, the home I'm living in, the previous owners tore down a previous one-car garage, greatly expanded the home by 700 feet, and was allowed to replace it with a new one-car garage. Now, as far as my neighbor's garage, you see the picture, they inherited a configuration apparently approved by planners in the city with a small garage door and a side door. So in effect, can only be used as a one-car garage. You can't get two cars in as they purchase it. So what they're wanting to do will not change the usage or the appearance in any way. So from my point of view, I don't see an issue with it, and hopefully you will agree.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber audience? Okay. Jennifer, do we have anybody online?
We do. For members at home to join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, toll free, then enter webinar ID 161-990-8039. For those of you already in Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're joined by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. No hands are going up. I don't think the attendees want to comment online.
Okay, well then we will close the public testimony and bring it back to commissioners for discussion. These are interesting projects. Go ahead, Robert.
Just thinking that since it's a 19.5 foot width for the garage, that we can look, just look at it as being a one-car garage, a large one-car garage by definition, because it can't be, by being 2020, meet the full definition of a one-car garage. So, I mean, one of the solutions I'm thinking of is just potentially looking at an exception that just says it's a one-car garage and let them go ahead and make the additions based on that. Because it's, I mean, that 19.5, just depending on how we consider it, makes the garage non-compliant anyhow. So why don't we just say it's a one-car garage like some of the other ones in the neighborhood, and which would be consistent with the 1964 zoning, and then leave it at that. So they can then go ahead and do their expansion. That way, I mean, there's an exemption that's based on the math, which is very small, but still the subtraction is enough to make it non-qualified.
Can I ask a planning question? What's more desirable, a complying one car or one stall, or two stalls that maybe don't comply with the current size standard for a parking stall? I mean, you used to do compacts as an example. Or is that too much?
It's an impossible question. If that house was proposed today, we'd tell them to revise it and provide a complying parking situation.
Okay.
And then to respond to Commissioner Bluth's comment, I think we had considered to go that approach, and I think I'm just hesitant to call this anything but a two-car garage, because I think it would kind of muddy the waters of a variance decision. So, if you're thinking about that reasoning, I would go ahead and just say that you could support the variance as the applicant has submitted it, but still call it a two-car garage.
Yeah, and I may offer just a slightly different opinion, Chris, because we haven't chatted about that. I would recommend that you deny the variance and make a separate finding that the existing space is a one-car garage, and then provide your findings of fact. So, because I think that's just a different way. You're not approving the variance, but you're giving a different finding of fact to allow it to remain at its current dimensions or reduced dimensions.
Would that
And
be,
would that constitute an approval then?
Yeah, they would be able to go forward with their project,
Right.
and then we would just deny the variance and say, there aren't the special unless you want to make the findings for special circumstances, and then realize if other projects come forward we would be looking at similar findings, or they could use those as comparisons. So you can go either way. You could support the variance, which results in the project. You could deny the variance and have separate findings about why a variance is not required and that it qualifies as a space, or you could do as staff recommends and deny it, in which would cause probably redesign.
Would this be a non-conforming two-car garage
And size.
Very,
Mhm.
or is
A
it one car,
non-conforming garage,
non-conforming
Mike?
one? I don't know which.
I think it would be a conforming large one.
So it would be non-conforming in total, in terms of total spaces, but conforming in terms of size for a one-car garage. It'd be more. Or the other option is, it's a non-conforming two-space garage by, was it 6 inches or something?
Mhm.
On the side.
by 6 inches, yes.
When I look at the neighborhood, I mean, obviously the single car garage was prior to 65, probably. They were conforming back then. But then we have this house. And with that wide door, I mean, that unusual door, it just looked out of place.
Jerry.
I have no problem approving this variance. I think we can make the findings. I think it's really easy to make the 3 findings. I mean, I understand the staff's position. It's, we don't want to set a bad precedent, but they do have special circumstances. They have this location of the existing garage. They have this topography.
Yeah, but Kim said we could make that exception
Mhm.
with the special circumstance.
Yeah, I'm just laying out the first finding. And then I don't see why they can't, just as there appears to have been a precedence for a uncovered space being allowed in the front yard, just like the photograph shows their car there. That's the second space. So they have the second space in the driveway. They have a 1-car space in the garage. But the first finding that there is an existing special circumstance of the existing garage location in relation to setbacks and topography. And then, of course, I don't agree with the second finding anyway. I don't see what the negative impacts of this project are in the neighborhood. I don't see any. And I would, I get the sense that I don't find a lot of, that we're going to deny this variance. It seems like everybody's kind of heading in the same direction. But if we were to approve it, I think the second finding would be that there aren't any negative impacts on the neighborhood, as evidenced by there's no change of any physical way, and we have all this neighbor support. And then, of course, the third finding has already been shown by staff and the applicant, that there are all these other examples in the neighborhood that there's no special privilege here.
I would support either approving the variance or going on the basis of what Bob said. People are fine with something that's non-conforming until they want to change it. Oh, then they have to bring it up to current date and current code or current rules. And it's obvious from the project that this is the most efficient design possible, the least costly and the most efficient. And it's not going to change the frontage of the house. So I would support either approving the variance or starting de novo from saying that it's already a non-conforming single car garage and going with the approval from that basis, either way.
And I also suggest that all the other dimensions of this house appear to be a little bit out of whack.
Yeah.
So that adds another special circumstance.
There's no amount of hand wringing is going to make this conforming anything. Because it's non-conforming, from the start. So I think that like Sandy said, I could go either way with denying the variance or going sideways, like a couple people have asked.
I
I have a
think,
question for Kim. If I were to, or Chris, if I were to make a motion to approve the variance with, certain findings, I'm sort of locked into this tandem thing of the uncovered space being approved in front of the garage, in the front setback. Should that be part of the approval? Is that important or is that?
Illegal.
are you suggesting that, rather than reducing the size, you're just saying that the uncovered required space is not subject to the front yard setback?
Correct. Since there's a precedence for that.
I don't know, it's all a little awkward for us. So I think you just need to lay out your findings. And I think one of your strongest findings is, the existing garage was approved in 1965 at such and such size. It is, in your opinion, a one-car garage. You also find, for the variance findings, and just go through, I think you had some good findings for those as well. I don't know I guess I'm having a little bit of a difficult time saying, I know in spirit, the driveway parking space acts as a parking space. But there have been previous public hearings and when that was established and argued that said that didn't qualify as the parking space. And so, but each circumstance, this is a fairly unique circumstance. I would just, try to draw that out. If you want to add it in that serves as the, de facto second parking space, you can do that.
Kim, is it simpler for staff just to go ahead and follow the suggestion that we deny it? And then we just go ahead and state as a finding that's a single car garage?
Procedurally, they're both the same for us. It's just what type of decision do you want to make?
I also just wanted to mention that calling it a one-car garage does make me uncomfortable because even though I did search a lot for old building permit records, I couldn't find anything that called it one or the other, but that's because the records were fairly sparse. And so if there's some sort of record out there that calls this a two-car garage and the planning commission is making a finding counter to that, is it ever going to come up? No, but I think it's easier to just say this is a two-car garage and you're reducing the requirement.
I'm a little conflicted here because if this was an ADU, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Exactly.
And we would lose all the parking anyway.
Exactly.
Um,
Well, then I'm going to move that we approve the variance.
I'll second.
Where you have to state the findings.
So the findings then would be, and I'm just sort of restating the negative findings in a positive way, that the findings are that the requirements of the zoning ordinance would deprive the property of privileges enjoyed by other properties. The reduced dimension variance would not be detrimental or injurious to property or improvements in the vicinity of the development site. And granting the setback variance, so hard to read these sentences that are double negatives. It doesn't constitute a grant of special privilege because other properties in the neighborhood have similar garage sizes. Is that good enough?
Well, no, you have to say the special circumstance. And I think that she had mentioned that the 60 was built in 65 or how does that go?
64?
64 and there was a different zoning at that point?
Yeah, what he said.
You got it, Chris?
Yeah, the requirement then was for just one parking space. There was no setback requirement specifically to uncovered spaces.
And also, I think the special circumstance is the location of the garage on the lot.
And the topography, the huge wall at the back.
And the topography.
The important thing here is Jennifer's good.
trying to.
Well, if you read it back, then we could decide whether it was what we were saying in the first place, Jennifer.
Okay, I will try, but I did miss number two, just a fair warning. So the first one, requirements of the zoning ordinance deprives this site of the privileges benefiting other properties. Was that accurate? And then what was number two?
It would not be detrimental or injurious to property improvements in the vicinity.
To other properties nearby?
And then the special circumstances in number three are, it was okay as is in 1964. The location on the lot dictates that this is a good place to put the improvement. And the topography denies going out the back way or on the side setbacks.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? word?
The location on the lot is the second one. And then the third one is the topography.
Okay, I did get the topography. Okay. I think I got it then.
So we have a motion, we have a second. And we have further discussion, anything else? Okay, Jennifer will do a
And
vote.
Vice Chair Bluth seconded that motion, right?
That's correct.
Okay, for the vote. Chair Fletcher.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bluth.
Yes.
Commissioner Brassfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Dawson.
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Latassa.
Yes.
Thank you. This motion carries and this variance is approved under the discussed findings.
And it's appealable to the city council within 10 days on forms available in the planning office.
Congratulations.
Anytime.
Moving on, commissioner comments. Moving on, informational reports and staff comments.
So we've had an interesting couple weeks and I'll just share them with you.
Do tell.
The city council did support the planning commission's override of the Airport Land Use Commission decision on the AD ordinance. So they supported the ordinance that you brought forward. So I think that's good news that they supported that. Let you know, sort of current issues at city council. We've been spending a lot of time on cannabis. The cannabis ordinance is moving forward. The council's moving from 3 locations to potentially 4, including North Fremont Street. The other 3 were downtown, Lighthouse Avenue, and 1 in the Wave Foam area. In addition, the council asked us to amend the draft ordinance to include, or to potentially include up to 5 events at the fairgrounds that included cannabis. So we owe back the council the ordinance in order to conduct environmental review on their proposed draft ordinance. So that's cannabis. The city council is also discussing establishing a rental registry, which is really the first step towards rent stabilization efforts. What that would entail, well, we first of all have to draft the ordinance, but generally I can tell you a rental registry would be where landlords have to upload their leases and all of their notices that, you know, if they're doing different actions or taking or increasing rent, decreasing rent, evictions, they would have to upload them into a rental registry. That a rental registry is seen as the first step towards rent stabilization because you have the ability to analyze how rents are changing in your community. I'll say there's a lot of stories around them. And for me, with over 6,000 renter occupied households in the city, it's hard to understand how it's really working in aggregate. You know, what is the true information? City of Salinas recently passed a rental registry. And so they're ahead of us by a few months. And so on May 30th, we will be having a city town hall on rental registries. I don't really think it'll impact your day-to-day work very much, but it's important for you to know in the context of the housing element that's potentially moving forward. The the other thing for you to be aware of, we just wrapped up, we extended the housing survey about opportunity sites and where the community wants to see housing units by 30 days, and it ended April 30th. The reason for the extension is we sent out 11,000 mailing notices with the first survey. And there was concern that we have 13,000 housing units in the city. So we then used a second list. So we did 2 very large mailings to every household in the city of Monterey. And we got I think, a pretty good response in terms of total numbers. So we're going to be bringing back those results to the Planning Commission, most likely in June. I don't think we're going to be ready by your next May meeting. And we're going to have to maybe even have a special meeting. We have to solidify the opportunity sites by the end of June in order to start the preparation of the environmental impact report and bring back everything for adoption by the end of the year. So we're trying to develop in June the preferred alternative for where the city of Monterey wants to rezone for affordable housing for that 3,654 housing units. So, and you'll see me push you really hard. If we don't get through, I'm going to be probably recommending extra meetings, and I'm not sure yet how the council fits into this. So we may have a joint meeting with the council. I'm not sure. But we've got June to figure this out.
Good work.
Yeah,
I-
but by other people.
Well, yeah, but still, I mean, compared to some of the other jurisdictions on the peninsula, you're doing great.
Yeah, our housing element, we've been reviewing drafts of all the background sections. I think we've reviewed almost all of them. So it's coming together nicely. We think we'll be able to meet the deadlines.
Kim, you mentioned in the past that you were moving forward on another manager. What's the status with that? Good.
We've had a recruitment. I conducted interviews and we're working through the process right now.
Any timeline?
I would hope by no later than July 1st, maybe earlier. We might have, it just depends
Yeah.
how it works. We had a previous recruitment and I had offered the position. And then, they had used that as leverage to go back with their existing employer and decline the job. And so there's just a process you have to work through until you get the right person that wants to come here and the person we want as well.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4, planning office update. Would you say that we just had a planning office? Okay, okay, great.
That's the
Perfect.
cell towers
Uh,
coming.
Meeting adjourned.